Kenton, Tennessee. This is one of my first live attendances of the building that I helped to build in 77, 78, and in 79, part of 79.
Well, good morning. It's good to see you here this morning, guests. We are especially glad that you are with us this morning. We hope that our service and our time together this morning is an encouragement and a blessing to you. Immediately following our service, we have life groups or Sunday school classes, and you can find information about that at the Welcome Center, which is directly behind the sanctuary. And there in front of you, there should be a visitor tab. We would love to have a record of your visit. On the back, you can list a prayer request. Tomorrow when the pastors meet, we would love to pray for you and whatever you write on the back of that sheet. But again, thank you so much for being here. Well, if you will, please take out your bulletin so that we can look at some of the events taking place this next week. This afternoon and evening, we have regular events. So there's youth choir, FBCU, children's choir, and youth life transformation groups. We've mentioned now for a couple of weeks that our Annie Armstrong Easter offering, our church goal is $18,000, so please pray about how the Lord might lead you to give towards that. Again, remember that all funds given towards that offering go directly towards church planting and mission efforts in North America. So please pray well about that. This coming Wednesday, we will have our regular service, and we said, we've mentioned how we have some of the younger men in our church preaching on Wednesday nights. Bradley Ray is one of our students at Union, and he will be preaching this Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. And then we have a quarterly business meeting on April 10th. April 13th, we have the Family Easter event that will take place 10 a.m. to noon. And for that, of course, we need egg donations. And I think we all know the best place to put those egg donations. So just take those wherever they best go. But please do bring those. Again, they need to be they need to have individually wrapped pieces of candy inside of them. And then our Palm Sunday service is April 14th. Please remember that life groups will take place first. So we'll have life groups at 9 a.m. and then our service at 10:30. And then graduation Sunday, we will recognize our graduates on May 5th. Parents, college students, we need to know if you are graduating. So if I have not contacted you already, please go ahead and contact myself or Micah or the church office and let us know about that. Well, again, guests, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Now let's take a moment to greet those around us.
Hey, Paul.
Mr. Jackson, good to have you.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning to you, sir. How you doing? God bless you. Dennis Jackson.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. And Bruce.
Dennis Jackson. Thank you.
Well, you see my folks will be now. Good to see you too. I know this young lady right here.
Paul, who's the minister here?
Justin Wainscott.
Wainscott, okay.
Justin Wainscott.
Where will he be sitting?
He's going to sit back over here.
I see.
And then he'll come down just before the sermon and
right.
sits with his family, which I think that's kind of nice. Pastors don't usually sit with their family.
Oh, absolutely.
There he is.
Would you make your way back to your seat?
I see.
Our New Testament reading
I see.
this morning comes from John 14, verses 6 through 11. You can find that text printed there in your bulletin, and we will read that responsively. I'll read what is in light print if you will read what is in bold. John 14, verses 6 through 11. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him.
Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and it is enough for us. Jesus said to him, have I been with you so long, and you still do not know me, Philip?
Whoever has seen me has seen the Father.
How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak of my own authority, but the Father who dwells in me does his works.
Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me, or else believe on account of the works themselves.
To God be the glory, great things He has join me in prayer? Father, we do come to worship you, to bow down. You are lovely, you are wonderful. Father, we have so much to be thankful for. You blessed us beyond measure. Father, I thank you for this church, for its ministry, for those who have accepted the call of the Great Commission to go and make disciples. Father, as we come this morning to hear your word preached, to hear your word sung, to study your word, Father, I pray that we will apply it to our lives, that we can share it with others that we come in contact with. Father, we thank you for the material blessings that you give to us. I pray, Father, that we would return a portion of that to you now. More importantly, Father, I pray that we would offer our lives, our talents, our time, the things that make a difference in other people's lives. Father, I pray that we would offer that to you as well. Father, thank you for loving us. Most of all, thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Treasures in heaven, oh people lay up your treasures in glory, where nothing in this world can take them away. Oh, listen, people, hear the pastor say, come and lay up your treasures in heaven. Oh, people, lay up your treasures in glory. Your treasures in this world will fade away, but the things of the Lord will last forevermore. Well, the Lord will come from them, shine will glory and burn again, set deep as a blue, and you will see the things that will last for eternity. Come and lay up your treasures in heaven, oh people, lay up your treasures in glory, where nothing in this world can take them away. Oh, listen, people, hear the Master say, come and lay up your treasures in heaven. Oh, people, lay up your treasures in glory. Your treasures in this world will fade away, but the things of the Lord will last forevermore, forevermore.
Amen.
Some people trust in their silver and gold. They put their faith in the wealth they hold. But fortunes will fade and kingdoms fall. So put your trust in the Lord of all. Won't you lay up your treasures in heaven? Oh, people, lay up your treasures in glory, where nothing in this world can take them away. Oh, listen, people, hear the Master say, come and lay up your treasures in heaven. Oh, people, lay up your treasures in glory. Your treasures in this world will fade away, but the things of the Lord will last forevermore, forevermore, forevermore,
Amen.
Deacons, if you would please join me in our time of responsive reading out of Psalms chapter 32, verses 1 through 5. Hear the word of the Lord. Blessed is the one whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered. When I kept silent, my bones wasted away, for I groaned all day long. I acknowledge my sin to you, and I did not cover my iniquity.
Confess my transgression to the Lord, and you forgave the iniquity of my sin.
If you would, please take this moment to confess your sins, and I will pray for this word. Father, you are the great light of the world. Without you, life is full of uncertainty and fear, but your steadfast hand stills our shaking heart. Without you, life is full of confusion, but your perfect word illuminates truth. You are the way, the truth, and the life. Your word exposes the reality that we are sinners in need of your forgiveness. Like David, we have tried to keep our sins silent. We try and ignore them and pretend as if they did not happen. We attempt to hide our sins from you, God. And the longer our sins go unforgiven, we remain in misery. Lord, our sinful transgressions is rebellion against you. We fall short and miss the mark in our relationship with you. The effects of our sin is crooked, perverse, and guilty before you. Our sins is like a boulder pinned up to the ground, but only you can lift it and carry it away. You know all our sins, and you alone can forgive them. When you forgive our sins, you wipe our record clean. Our sins are atoned through the blood sacrifice of Christ. Through Christ, our relationship is restored with you.
Yes.
When you forgive, you do not count our iniquities against us and declare us righteousness. Your forgiveness is one of the greatest blessings we could imagine.
Yes.
And for that we say thank you.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Savior. Our assurance of pardon this morning comes out of Psalms chapter 32, verse 2. Say it together. Many are the sorrows of the wicked, but steadfast love surrounds the one who trusts in the Lord.
That and turn with me in the Bibles to the Gospel of Mark, chapter 8. Mark chapter 8, verses 27 through 38 will be our text this morning as we continue in this season of Lent and prepare ourselves to remember and celebrate the passion and suffering of our Lord Jesus Christ during Holy Week, and then come together to celebrate his resurrection from the dead. I want us to spend the next 2 Sundays thinking about the cross. And so this morning we look together at Mark chapter 8, verses 27 through 38. If you don't have a Bible, I would encourage you to take one from the pew in front of you. And you can find this text on page 844 in the Pew Bible. Page 844 in the Pew Bible. Hear the word of the Lord from Mark chapter 8, beginning in verse 27. And Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And on the way, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they told him, "John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and others one of the prophets." And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Christ." And Jesus strictly charged them to tell no one about it. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he said this plainly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." And he called to him the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it.
Yes.
For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? For what can a man give in return for his life? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed, when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." May God bless the reading and hearing of his word. Thank you. You may be seated. Well, about 100 years ago, a theological outlook of many professing Christians here in America began to change. And the change was not for the better. There was a growing theological liberalism that was beginning to impact American churches. There was one theologian who was alive during the tail end of that era, and his name was Richard Niebuhr, and Niebuhr gave a brief but fitting description of this new theological outlook that was beginning to impact the churches. And I want to share that description, that summary that Niebuhr gave, because I fear that the same theological outlook that he was describing is how many professing Christians in American churches today still think. I fear this is still the prevailing theological outlook of many who sit in churches in this nation, even this morning. So here's Niebuhr's description, his summary of this theological outlook. A God without wrath brought men without sin into a kingdom without judgment through the ministry of Christ without cross. Now listen to it again. hear each phrase. A God without wrath brought men without sin into a kingdom without judgment through the ministry of Christ without a cross. In other words, what Niebuhr was helping us understand is that if, as so many people had come to believe, and I fear so many today believe, that God has no wrath, and men have no sin, and the kingdom of God has no judgment, then there's no need for Christ to bear the cross. There's no need for Christ to bear the cross. If human beings aren't really sinful, and God's not really wrathful, and there's not really going to be a judgment, then the cross of Christ, the sacrificial suffering of Jesus Christ on the cross, becomes not only irrelevant, it becomes completely unnecessary. So friends, if your basic theological outlook goes something like this, human beings are inherently good. There's a real deep-seated problem in us called sin. And God is all loving. He would never punish someone or send them to a place like hell. All that talk of wrath is so antiquated, so outdated. And when we die, there's not going to be a judgment. That's just a scare tactic that the church uses. Friends, if that is your basic theological framework, then you need to realize that, number one, your theology has no need for the Lord Jesus Christ. And your theology has no need for the cross of Christ. I mean, that becomes completely unnecessary to your theological view. Number two, your theology, whatever you may want to call it, cannot rightly be called Christian. It is beyond the bounds of true Christian theology. And number three, you cannot understand the fundamental teachings of the Bible if that is what you believe. Because, brothers and sisters, what is abundantly clear in the Bible is that without the cross, you cannot understand Jesus Christ, and you cannot understand Christianity. It is an impossible task. And there are few texts in the Bible that teach us that truth, that teach us the centrality and the necessity of the cross, like the one we have before us here in Mark chapter 8. You see, this text is really the turning point in the Gospel of Mark. Peter's confession of Jesus as the Christ, the Messiah, there in verse 29, is the hinge on which everything in this gospel turns. This is what everything up to this point in Jesus' ministry has been leading to. All the miracles, all the teaching, all the demonstrations and displays of divine power and authority, they've all been leading to this moment. The disciples now have their eyes open to who Jesus really is. He is the Christ. He is the Messiah. He is the anointed one, the long-awaited prophet, priest, and king. But once that confession is made, once his identity is revealed to them, then it becomes crucial for Jesus to teach them what that means, both for him and for them. And what becomes obvious to us is that the cross is at the center of both what it means for Jesus to be the Christ and for us to follow him in the Christian life. So there are two overarching main truths that I want us to see here in this text. Number one, the cross is central and necessary for understanding Christ. And number two, the cross is central and necessary for understanding the Christian life. The cross is central and necessary to both. to understanding Christ and to understanding the Christian life. So I want us to see these two truths illustrated here in the text. Let's see first that the cross is central and necessary for understanding Christ. Look again at verses 27 through 30. And Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And on the way, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" They told him, "John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and others one of the prophets." And he asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Christ." And Jesus strictly charged them to tell no one about it. Now, Jesus raises two questions to his disciples as they're walking on the way. The first question is the easier one for them to answer. Who do people say that I am? You see, it's always easier to answer in the third person. It's always easier to tell what other people think about something or someone. I mean, it doesn't really cost you anything to answer a question like that because it doesn't demand anything from you personally. You just have to say what you've heard other people say. And so the disciples answer Jesus' question there in verse 28. They say, well, some say John the Baptist, others say you're Elijah, and others say you're one of the prophets. Now, the problem with what other people were saying about Jesus is that they are not recognizing who he really is. John the Baptist, Elijah, the prophets, those are all significant figures to be sure. But they are all preparation for someone greater. They all are coming to point towards someone else who is to come. And to see Jesus as just another one of the preparatory figures, one who's just pointing to someone else who is still to come, is to see Jesus wrongly. It's to deny his uniqueness. It's to deny who he really is. It's to miss the fact that he is the someone greater. He is the one who is to come, that all these other figures are pointing to. And so Jesus asks the second question, a more difficult question, a personal question. Not who do other people say that I am, but who do you say that I am? Now, this question changes the situation. This question changes the dynamic. This is no longer just an armchair discussion about who Jesus is and what people think about him. This is no longer a discussion in which the disciples are removed from the equation. Now they are personally involved. Now they are confronted with having to answer this question for themselves. And listen, this is the question that confronts each and every one of us this morning. It's easy to sit around and discuss what other people may think about Jesus. Well, some say he's a great historical figure. Some say he's a great prophet. That kind of conversation, that kind of discussion, still allows us to keep Jesus at a distance. It still doesn't force us to become involved in the conversation. But friends, sooner or later, you have to answer this question. Who do you say Jesus is? And friends, there's not a more significant question that you can consider and answer than that. That's the question that confronts us all. Children, students, adults, that's the question that confronts us. And it's the question that confronts the disciples here in Mark chapter 8. So Peter speaking for the whole group, as he so often does, answers and says, "You are the Christ. You are the Messiah. You are the one that John the Baptist and Elijah and the prophets pointed us to. You are the one who they prepared us for. You are the one who is to come. And here you are. You are the long-awaited Messiah." And then notice what Jesus does in verse 30. And Jesus strictly charged them to tell no one about it. Wait a second. Why would Jesus strictly charge them to tell no one about who he is, that he's the Messiah? I thought Peter answered correctly. Isn't he the Messiah? Isn't he the Christ? He is. And Peter has the right title. But Peter has the wrong understanding
Amen.
of who the Messiah is.
Mm-hmm.
He is accurate in his view, but his understanding of the Messiah is misplaced.
Limited.
His understanding of who Jesus really is inaccurate. And Jesus knows it. And that's why he tells them in verse 30 that they must not tell anyone about who he is. And
Using reverse psychology.
In verse 31, Jesus begins to teach them who he really is as the Messiah. What it really means that he is the Christ, the long-awaited King. And what we soon realize is that the cross is absolutely central and necessary for understanding Jesus Christ.
Yes.
You cannot understand Jesus Christ apart from the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what verses 31 through 33 make clear. Look, verse 31. And Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he said this plainly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God,
right.
but on the things of man."
Right.
Jesus tells them that he must suffer. He must suffer many things. And he must be rejected. And he must be killed. And then after 3 days he will rise again. It is necessary for these things to happen, Jesus says. This is the way it must be for the Messiah. This is what it means, Jesus says, for me to be the Messiah. Because of our sin, his suffering on the cross becomes a necessity. And Mark tells us in verse 32 that Jesus says this plainly. No parables, no metaphors, no figurative language. Jesus puts it where they can understand exactly what he means. And they do understand what he means. They just don't like it. They don't like what they are hearing from Jesus because a rejected Messiah seems like a contradiction to them. A suffering Messiah is not compatible with their belief system. And so the rest of verse 32 tells us that Peter actually takes Jesus aside and begins to rebuke him. Peter takes Jesus and he tries to explain to him that this can't be right. Jesus, what are you talking about? You are the Messiah. You've come to restore the kingdom. You've come to reign. Why are you talking about rejection? But look at verse 33. Jesus rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan." Get behind me, Satan. This is strong language for Jesus to use. I mean, Peter has just confessed that Jesus is the Christ. And now, Jesus is calling Peter Satan. But the language Jesus uses, strong though it may be, is accurate. Because remember the passage that David preached last Sunday about the temptation of Jesus in the wilderness. And what did we see Satan trying to tempt Jesus to do? To abandon the way of the cross. To be deterred from suffering and rejection and cross. And what is it that Peter is doing here? Peter is doing exactly what Satan tried to do in the wilderness. To deter Jesus from the cross. To get Jesus to avoid the cross. That is why Jesus calls him Satan. He has his mind on the things of man rather than the things of God. And friends, you need to realize that if your view of Jesus sees the cross as unnecessary, as illogical, as tragic, then you too are setting your mind on the things of man rather than the things of God.
Amen.
So let me state it again. The cross is central and necessary for understanding Christ. You cannot view him rightly apart from his suffering and rejection and death and resurrection. And listen, one of the things that ought to really prove this to us is the fact that this particular story, this particular account, is recorded for us in the Gospel of Mark. Now, why would I say that? Because remember who it is that serves as the eyewitness account for Mark as he's writing his Gospel. Who is it that is telling him about all of these things that happened in the earthly ministry of Jesus as Mark is recording them so that he can write his Gospel? Mark wasn't the eyewitness. So who was his eyewitness? It was Peter. Why would Peter, who doesn't exactly come off looking very good in this passage, insist that this story be recorded? I mean, Peter's called Satan, for goodness sake. Why would he want that shared? Why would he want that widely told? Unless Peter came to understand the significance of what Jesus was teaching here. That apart from the cross, you cannot understand who he is. That apart from his suffering and rejection and death, you will not understand Jesus Christ. The cross is central and necessary for understanding Christ. Second, the cross is central and necessary for understanding the Christian life. Just like you can't understand Jesus apart from the cross, neither can you understand what it means to follow Jesus apart from the cross. You can't understand Christ without the cross, and you can't understand the Christian life apart from the cross. A wrong view of messiahship leads to a wrong view of discipleship. And so Jesus sees the need to teach us about this as well. So notice what we read in the very first part of verse 34. And Jesus called to him the crowd with his disciples and said to them. In other words, he wants the crowd to hear what he is about to say as well. This instruction that he's about to give regarding the Christian life isn't just for the 12. It is for all who would follow him. Meaning, what Jesus says about the Christian life in the verses that follow is not just for pastors and church staff members and missionaries and deacons and Sunday school teachers. It is for all who would follow after Jesus Christ. It is for every one of his followers, every one of his disciples. It is for everyone who calls himself or herself a Christian. So what does Jesus say? Verse 33. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Jesus says, if you want to be my disciple, you want to be called by my name, if you want to follow me, you have got to, first of all, deny yourself. You've got to practice self-denial. You've got to stop thinking that the world revolves around you, that your rights, your desires are what are ultimate in your life. You have to deny yourself. And then Jesus takes it even further in the rest of verse 34 when he says, not only must we deny ourselves, but we must take up our cross and follow him. We must each take up our cross if we want to follow Jesus. Suffering and rejection is not just the path that Jesus is called to walk. It is also the path that we who follow him are called to walk. So we must not only deny ourselves, but we must also die to ourselves.
Right.
That's what it means to take up our cross. It signals the complete claim that Jesus has on our lives. It means we have relinquished all our rights, all our desires, and handed them over to the Lord Jesus Christ. This is why Dietrich Bonhoeffer could famously say, when Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. When Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. You see, the cross is not just central and necessary for Jesus. It's central and necessary for us as followers of Jesus. It's not just the place he laid down his life. It's the place where we are called daily to lay down our lives as well. Remember, the cross is not an image of ease and comfort. It's an image of pain and cruelty and mockery and shame. It is a reminder to us of the cost of discipleship, of the cost of following Jesus.
Right.
It tells us that the Christian life is anything but easy. Neil Postman once said, I believe I am not mistaken in saying that Christianity is a demanding and serious religion. When it is delivered as easy and amusing, it is another kind of religion altogether. It is another kind of religion altogether. The cross is central and necessary for us who live the Christian life. But hear what Jesus goes on to say. While the cost of following him is steep, while it requires us to deny ourselves and pick up our cross, it does not compare with the reward. Look at verse 35. For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's sake will save it. The Christian life is a life of surrender to the Lord. We lose our lives for his sake and for the sake of the gospel. We lay down our lives just as he laid down his. That's what he's calling us to. That's what it means to live the Christian life. But in losing our lives, in the end, we save them. And notice the question that Jesus asked here at the end of this passage. Verse 36. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? Verse 37, for what can a man give in return for his life? Friends, these aren't just rhetorical questions to be passed over. These are questions that carry eternal consequences. Don't dismiss them. Don't ignore them. Don't trivialize them. These are questions that you are meant to ponder. You need to reflect on what Jesus is asking here, and then you need to hear the solemn warning he gives in verse 38. For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him will the Son of Man also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. You see, the suffering one, the shamed one, the crucified and despised and rejected one, is now the triumphant one, the victorious one, the risen and resurrected one. After his death on the cross, he rose again in triumph over sin and over death and over hell. And then he ascended to the Father, where right now he sits at his right hand, awaiting the day when he will come to earth again. But when he comes the second time, it will not be in humility. It will not be as the suffering servant. It will not be as the rejected and despised one. It will be as the King of kings and Lord of lords in all his splendor and in all the glory of his Father and with all the holy angels. And on that day, all who suffered with him, all who experienced the shame and the humiliation and the rejection of the cross will rejoice and enjoy his glory. And not only that, he will rejoice in you. He will rejoice in those who have suffered with him. He will welcome you into his kingdom, and you will trade in your cross for it.
Amen.
But remember this: no cross, no crown. No cross now, no crown then. If you're ashamed of Jesus now, if you refuse to pick up your cross and follow him now, if you value the world more than you value Christ, if you value your life more than you value him and his gospel, then on that day you will know shame like you have never known before. Because on that day, the one who comes in glory and in triumph and in victory, he will be ashamed of you. He will be ashamed of you, and you will realize, you will painfully realize that you have wasted, you have forfeited your life. You just forfeited your life. You may have gained the whole world, but you have forfeited your life. You have valued and seen and prized trivial and meaningless things rather than the only one who truly matters. So friends, what will it be? Temporary shame now in this world that's passing away? Or eternal shame? Because you value this one more than the one to come. How are you, not other people, how are you going to answer the questions that confront you from the Word of God this morning? Who do you say Jesus is? You must answer that question for yourself. No one else can answer it for you. And understand this, to fail to answer it is an answer in itself. So how are you going to answer this question? Who do you say Jesus is? Just an interesting historical figure? Or the Son of God, your Savior, who suffered and bled and died on the cross to save you? Will you pick up your cross and follow him who picked up the cross and suffered for you? Will you suffer with him and for him? Understand, that's what he calls you to in the Christian life. Jesus calls you to deny yourself, to die to yourself, to pick up your cross, and to follow after him. But remember, in losing your life, you are really saving it. Because when Jesus returns in glory, you will trade in that cross for a crown. You will trade in all your shame for his glory and his victory. So let us all be able to leave here saved and singing and meaning to the old rugged cross. I will ever be true. Its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to my home far away.
Yes.
Where his glory forever I'll share.
Yes.
To the old rugged cross, I'll ever be true. I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it one day for a crown. Let's pray. Oh God, would you help us to cling to your cross? God, would you help us to understand that we cannot know you rightly without your cross, and we cannot follow you without picking up our cross. So God, would you help us to have the grace to follow you, to suffer with you, and to trust that one day we will trade in our cross for a crown. In Jesus' name,
Amen.
well, friends, we're going to sing that hymn, The Old Rugged Cross. It's hymn number 141. And that hymn is going to serve as an opportunity for you to respond publicly to God's word this morning. Maybe the Lord is moving within you and calling you to himself. Maybe you know you need to say, I believe that Jesus is the Christ. I believe he is my Savior. He suffered for me. Come, our pastors will be here. We'd love to receive you, encourage you, pray with you. Maybe the Lord's leading you to become a part of this church body. However the Lord leads. If you need to respond publicly, come. Otherwise, sing and make this your commitment to the Lord this morning. Hymn number 141, The Old Rugged Cross. Let's stand as we sing.
So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true. Its shame and reproach gladly bear. And He'll call me someday to my home far away, where His glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown.
All God's people say. Thank you for being with us this morning. If you're a guest, glad to have you worshiping with us. We'll stay for one of our life groups. I want to remind you of our activities this evening. Youth choir, and then our children's choirs, our youth discipleship groups, FBC University classes. And then we encourage you to be with us Wednesday evening. Pray for guidance and get ready to teach this Wednesday night and for the others as they continue to prepare in the weeks ahead. Again, thank you for your presence with us this morning. Any other announcements for the benediction? If not, we'll remain standing and receive the benediction. Now may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God the Father, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Amen.
Glad you made it today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You knew I was coming back because I told you
Yes, you
whenever
did.
I come out here, I said, you know, I'm going to be back.
This is a great church, a great pastor.
It really is.
And
You can feel the love here.
You come back.
Do you remember what I told you? That I helped to build this church. I helped to build this building.
Wow, I didn't know you. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was only a teenager at the time. I helped to hang the iron in it.
Well,
The big steel in it.
well, good for you.
Yes.
Well, you come back and visit
I
us.
sure will. And what's your name again?
Pat.
Pat?
Pat Edmondson.
God bless you, Miss Pat.
Bless you too.
Take care of
What is your
yourself.
name?
Dennis Jackson. They call me Juby.
Well, it's nice to meet you. Come back and visit us.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. What's your name? Hey, how you doing? Good morning.
Hey, brother.
Good. You doing good?
Doing just fine.
How you doing?
God bless you.
Yeah, y'all's
Well done.
Thank you.
How long you been doing this?
I've been playing about 5 years. I've been playing here about 3 almost. So.
Do an excellent job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I got blessed today.
I'm glad you came.
Yep. God bless you.
You too.
Oh, I got one of these. Saturday? Enjoy the rest of the week.
Hey, how are you? I'm fine.
That's their cornerstone.
Good morning.
What's down below?
Sunday school classes. Basement.
I've never been down there. You care if I go with you?
No, I don't mind.
I'm recording.
Oh, I noticed you sitting up front. What are you doing it for?
Because I helped to build the church
Oh, okay.
back years ago in the 70s.
Quite a few years ago.
Yeah, quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
The church building. I didn't actually build the church, the church building. I'm from Weakley County.
Oh, okay.
Pretty close to, well, it's in between Kenton, Tennessee
Yeah, I know where
and Sharon, Tennessee is where I'm from, down around Hop-In Wildlife Refuge.
Okay.
Elevator goes slow, doesn't it?
Yes, it just moves at its own pace.
I got you.
The bottom just makes a complete... Oops.
Hey, hi, Tim. How you doing?
I'm good. How about
Good.
you?
Oh,
You're
fine.
going to have to go down with us.
That's all right.
You going down with us?
No, I am.
Then he'll go back up. I imagine.
You with security? Who are you with?
So, yeah.
I figured you was.
Tell me about your recording there, Mr. Jackson.
Pardon me?
Tell me about your recording there, Mr. Jackson.
Oh, I'm just recording because it has sentimental value. Is the fact that I helped to build the church in 77, 78, and the first part of 79.
The down here just makes a complete circle.
Oh, does it? This is the first time I've ever been down here.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I wanted to come.
He wanted to know about it here.
Sure.
So, this is part of the expansion. Didn't they expand onto this building?
No, it
this
was
is not.
here.
No, this is the original building.
Is it?
The church, the basement was here when it was built.
Okay.
It's always been here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember these stairways right here. Somebody had messed up with the contractor, and we had to come back and hang these stairwells after the building had already been assembled, and there wasn't no way of doing it with a crane, and we had to do it the old-fashioned way.
Samuel's doing great, by the way.
Good. Yeah, it's quite the project. Quite the project.
Oh yeah, it was a project, especially whenever you was having to get in here with homemade devices, cranes and stuff like that. Now what do we got here?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Nothing.
We need to talk outside.
Something going on?
We need to talk outside.
What's going on? What's going on?
What you doing all right this morning?
Sure. Kind of tough going up them steps.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said watch the step. There's a workout for you right here.
Oh, yeah. We're going to go this way. And then we're going to go back this way.
Okay.
Cutting down? Is that what you're talking about?
Is there a concern?
Yeah, I'll explain to you when we get outside.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. What's going on? Get out of the view.
Yeah, so people would be so nosy.
What's going on?
Well, we're just gonna talk to them.
Yeah, they can explain it to you a little bit better.
We wasn't trying to cause no scene in there, so they wouldn't want to come out here and talk to you.
Okay.
Mr. Jackson, we appreciate you coming to worship at church today, but we're a little concerned because you videotaped everything today. We don't know why.
It's just because I built the building and it's got a lot of sentimental value to me.
I understand that, but you know, it's been a lot of years. I know you came and toured the church a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago.
That was probably about 4 or 5 months ago. I took some still pictures.
You know, we're welcome to have you, but you know, we don't appreciate the videos. Some of the church members don't want to be videotaped. You know, I mean, we videotape our services so you can watch them on TV anytime you want to.
Right.
But I know you're videotaping us right now.
Right.
So, you know, if you're going to do that, we're going to have to ask you to leave, okay?
Leave and not come back?
Leave and not come back. Okay?
Even though I helped build the building.
I understand, but we're going to have to ask you to leave and not come back, okay? So no problems today, but if you'll just leave and not come back, we'd appreciate it.
Well, alrighty then. That kind of makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. You have a good day, sir.
You too. You too.
The Lord loves you, and the Lord loves you. The Lord loves all of us. This is the first time that I've been to the building in an actual service. I did come here, I think it was maybe 3 months ago, whenever I had a good friend that was being operated on, to stop and inquire about the building. We obviously have a group of people that are concerned about my well-being or about theirs. We obviously have paranoid schizophrenics that are basically treating me like a criminal. once more, this is what I have been receiving from the Baptist Association that has turned their backs on me for whatever reason. And I'm sure it ain't got nothing to do with videotaping whoever, but what it's got to do with is what's on my paperwork pertaining to my involvement with law enforcement. I'm pretty sure that's what it's about. This is really sad. Really sad that it has led to schizophrenic, paranoid, delusional, people having a phobia about being frightened and scared. It's really sad in the 21st century, because whenever I was a part of the construction organization back in the 70s, people was not this way. Churches was not this way. Society was not this way. And to think that I helped to create a masterpiece pertaining to a building, and to think that I have been rudely interrupted in my worship is really sad. It is so sad. It has absolutely broken my heart towards what has occurred here today, especially with me being the first time guest in an actual service, and to be treated this way. It is so sad. So sad.
Turn your lights down.
Oh well, what the heck? What the heck? What the heck? What the heck? So sad. Really, really sad.